How Saudi Arabia and Russia are crushing the US and UK economies. Saudi Arabia versus USA. The 13-nation OPEC cartel, with Saudi Arabia in the front line and its 10 Russian-led allies, agreed to reduce 2 million barrels per day from November at a meeting in Vienna. It is the biggest cut since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. That's right, you just heard that right, guys. In today's video, we will see how Saudi Arabia and Russia are crushing the economies of the USA and the UK. That's one crazy move, isn't it? To wrap your heads around this gigantic move and to know what they are doing and how they are doing it, make sure to stay tuned till the end, since we have compiled it just right for you all. And we are sure you do want to know what's happening worldwide, especially how this could potentially affect us all. In response to this case, the United States is passing something called the NOPEC bill, and the UK government are deploying the price cap strategy. So in short, Russia, the Middle East, and the West are engaged in an oil war that could decide the fate of the world economy. What is the UK's price cap strategy, and how will this oil war affect the world? OPEC Plus's headline-grabbing decision to cut production by 2 million barrels per day in November is a slap in the face to President Joe Biden and other Western leaders. OPEC is the acronym for the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. It is a permanent intergovernmental organization created at the Baghdad Conference on September 10 to 14, 1960. This group comprises oil-producing countries like Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and 10 other countries. On top of that, they were also joined by Russia and other countries in 2016, and eventually they formed the OPEC Plus group together. Now this group accounts for more than 50% of all oil exports in the world. Now the question is, why OPEC Plus plan to cut oil production, and how does it help them? Very simply put, they are causing something called the supply-demand mismatch. For example, let's say there is a demand for 200 barrels of oil. So if there are 4 oil countries, they will sell at $30 per barrel, and each of them would produce 50 barrels of oil. Hence, each country would get a $1,500 revenue. And now if one of these countries purposefully decreases the supply from $50 to $10, what will happen? Although the demand is still 200 barrels, the supply is only 160 barrels. So now, even though the other 3 countries could supply more oil and make up for the shortage, but they will not do. Well, because now they can sell oil at $60 per barrel. They will sell the same 50 barrels, but now they will get a revenue of $3,000, meaning more profit despite giving out the same quantity of oil. Similarly, if all the countries decrease the supply by 10 barrels, they can again increase the price to $70 per barrel, and eventually, they could make $2,800 each, despite supplying less oil. This is why every time OPEC increases or decreases oil production, it causes a ripple effect worldwide. The new decade witnessed an unprecedented beginning, with the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic pervading almost every aspect of daily life. The pandemic had a detrimental impact on the world economy and the energy sector, pressuring nations to take necessary, firm measures to slow the spread of the virus and counter its effects. OPEC Plus's headline-grabbing decision to cut production by 2 million barrels per day in November is the biggest cut since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. This could have serious consequences for economies worldwide, including the US, the UK, and India. Given that the US and the UK are already on the brink of recession, this rise in oil prices could exacerbate their situation to the point of disaster. The White House press secretary said President Joe Biden would reevaluate his relationship with Saudi Arabia. The move of OPEC and its allies to cut oil production is a mistake and a short-sighted decision that has favored the Russians, and the US is going to reevaluate its ties with Saudi Arabia, the White House has said. The decisions that OPEC Plus made last week, we believe, sided with the Russians and were against the interests of the American people and the families around the world. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre told reporters, "We believe that the decision is going to hurt and harm lower-income economies. It was misguided and it was a mistake and a short-sighted decision, she said in response to a question. The meeting of the 24 OPEC plus oil-producing countries, including Russia, comes at a time when much of the world is already battling soaring energy costs. A supply cut will also exacerbate tensions between Saudi Arabia and the US and the UK. Since the US and the UK are already on the brink of recession, this rise in oil prices could exacerbate their situation to the point of disaster. So the US is passing a bill called NOPEC in response, and the UK government is implementing a price cap strategy. The No Oil Producing or Exporting Cartels Bill, or NOPEC. In 2019, Saudi Arabia threatened to sell oil in currencies other than the dollar if Washington passed NOPEC, a move that could undermine the dollar's status as the world's main reserve currency, reduce Washington's clout in global trade, and weaken its ability to enforce sanctions on nation-states. Some analysts have cautioned that NOPEC could ultimately harm domestic energy companies if it pressures Saudi Arabia and other OPEC members to flood global markets with oil because they produce oil much more cheaply than U.S. companies. The American Petroleum Institute, the top U.S. oil and gas lobbying group, also opposes the bill. In a letter to the committee's leaders, API said NOPEC creates significant potential detrimental exposure to U.S. diplomatic, military, and business interests, while likely having limited impact on the market concerns driving the legislation. This is the reason why every time the U.S. brings this bill to the table, they get blackmailed by the Saudis. And this brings the question of the U.S. couldn't pass this bill for the past 20 years. What is so special this time? Well, this is where we have some discrete pointers that seem different this time. First of all, it's not just the US this time, but also the entire Europe that wants to bring down oil prices. And if you look at Saudi's weapon import, you will see that most of the weapons come from the US and Europe. So this time, the entire US-UK group could threaten to stop supplying weapons to Saudi Arabia. Even the European Union has deployed a price cap strategy, which will now be applied to Russian oil. And in adverse conditions, it could even extend to the Middle East. So the question is, what is the price cap strategy, and how will it help Europe control oil prices? So now the EU has applied sanctions and measures against the insurance companies, forcing them to not give insurance to ships buying Russian oil above the price cap. This is how it works. Let's say Wilson is an Indian buyer of oil from Russia. Then he will have to buy insurance for his ship. For this, he will have to present a lot of paperwork, wherein he will have to disclose at what price he's buying oil from Russia. And if he has bought oil at $60, but the price cap decided by the West happens to be $50, then you will not be provided with insurance. So you see, even though the European government is not involved between Russia and India, the European insurance companies will deny insurance to shipping companies because they will, by default, have to abide by the price cap. This is how serious Europe and the US are about oil prices. Well, suppose the Saudis deliberately manipulate the oil prices, and the situation in Europe during winter goes out of control. In that case, they will not hesitate to go all in and apply these same price caps on the OPEC Plus countries. So there you have it, the story of the oil war between the Middle East, Russia, and the Western powers. What do you think about the bad blood between these super powerful nations? Do you think this will subside anytime soon or continue until one tears the other down and crashes the world's economy irrevocably? So do let us know which topic we should cover next. If you enjoyed the content, give us a like, and thank you for subscribing to our channel. See you at the next one. Bye.